But that'll take us out to the Flash issue 67. Mark Waid writing. Greg LaRocque is back on the art. Obviously, he skipped an issue, the Aquaman, guest starring issue. So this issue has the Abracadabra showing up, and we start to weave in more of the future stuff, which doesn't actually connect to what was done in the specials, but definitely something that Mark Waid's going to be playing with is the future timeline and sort of that. So you have Abracadabra, who shows up at the start through a random dude's top hat, and immediately he's like, people remember, and then gets really pissed when he sees that Abracadabra is advertised for some charity thing that the Flash is doing, and it gets livid. I mean, we don't see his face notably here. It shields us from his face the entire time. We don't get to see
very
it.
important.
Yeah. So we go to this. It's like a charity basketball game, or at least this part is a basketball game. It's Wally basically beating an entire basketball team on his own because he's got super speed.
It seems to be, all various heroes or powered people just do their own, like, hey, here's a trick that I'll do. Yeah,
Pied Piper, who's a good guy here in this part of the timeline, is there to help. Linda's there. Wally's wolfing down hot dogs, and Linda's disgusted by the whole thing. So it's all very delightful Wally stuff. I think it's fun to get to like these sort of quiet beats in some of the issues in the run where we've done the origin story. We had the kind of our kind of fill-in sort of story with Aquaman, right? And this is kind of like, okay, we're back to kind of what the run's going to be. So this is kind of our first glimpse to see, okay, what are the arcs going to be like now that we're back in present day. Wally's the Flash. What are we doing here? And so having like, okay, so we've got the ongoing kind of romance with Linda at play, this charity work, and then although there was a line here from Wally I thought was a bit harsh. This guy calling himself Abracadabra shows up, and Wally turns around to him and says, "Did I ask you? Get lost, okay?" And I'm like, all right, Wally, I get you don't like him, but that felt like a pretty jerky line.
To be fair, the guy was a bit of a dick. Caught your act. It was cute, but that's pretty demeaning.
Yeah, I mean, he's got another sort of snarky line later, but the one later kind of worked better for me in the context of the scene. It felt like it was snarky, but in character and kind of in the moment. Felt justified. So this Abracadabra does his big magic trick for the crowd. He's got all these model assistants with big playing cards, and he does his thing. But then, of course, the real Abracadabra makes him catch fire, and Wally goes into like douse the flames, runs around, does some tornadoes.
Yeah,
whole thing.
It's too late.
It's too late. Well, the guy's been put in the card. He's become one of the playing cards.
Yeah, but seemingly on fire within the card as well, which I thought was a pretty horrific touch.
Yeah. So one of the things that Wally really sets up here in his narration, probably even before this, is that he sets up, okay, Abracadabra doesn't actually use magic. He has technology from the future, which is so advanced that it seems like magic, but he's not actually a magician, which I think is really important to note, just because as the issue goes on, and he keeps like claiming he's like, the best, greatest, magician ever, and Houdini was a fraud and all that. It's like, well, so are you. like,
yeah. What I really like as well is it establishes that Wally, he's not even up to date on regular present day stage magic, right?
Sure, yeah.
Because this card, this trick with the cards, he's like, yeah, I've seen it before, and I have to admit, I don't even know how it works. But he's like, it does. He's supposed to vanish, but I don't get it. And if he doesn't get regular stage magic now, how does he, comprehend something from like 6,000 years, about 4,000 years in the future?
Yeah. So let me actually finally get to see, actually, I liked as well Wally saying that. A lot of Barry's old foes, they're kind of lame and goofy, but Abracadabra was not one of them. I kind of like this idea that, like, if some of them pop up as little like guest stars for a joke, like it's kind of set up that Wally kind of acknowledges them as that. But we finally see Abracadabra, and he looks grotesque. He's all burned, and his face is mangled. He's kind of like Abracadabra crossed with like Freddy Krueger. He's kind of my best.
That's a pretty good descriptor.
Yeah. So, and was okay, it's showtime. So he tries to take him on, and Abracadabra uses some of his tricks to.
I like how that's
off.
the second issue so far this week where someone has used it's showtime.
That is true. Yeah, that's true. It's kind of funny how we had like 2 issues with Scarecrow last week as well.
Yeah.
We keep having these weird parallels showing up. But no, one of my favorite parallels of the whole issue is the close up of his eyes. Abracadabra, that is. When he sort of tries to he kind of wraps up the judges. The male judge says something he doesn't like, or the guy who
it's the Houdini thing.
Yeah, the guy says because no one knows this is the show yet. They all still think this is part of the show, right? They don't realize there's a real threat in front of them. And he says something about comparing it to Houdini, and the bottom of that page, the panel of Abracadabra's eyes, it really looks like a horror movie villain smirking, and like
I love just the hint of the smirk with the teeth that you can see in the bottom of the panel. Like there's only like maybe 3 or 4 teeth on show, but it's just enough that you really get the sense of that evil grin.
Yeah, it's the skull as well. It's the way his eyebrows are angled. It just all of it feels just sinister and grim. So yeah, really, really good. And even a couple of pages later as well, when he's sort of like he's sort of monologuing maniacally at the bottom of the page, and he's sort of got that thing where he's got one eyebrow up, but his skin's kind of gone, so it's just kind of like
horrific. Yeah.
Oh,
I love how like his skin's all gone, but his eyebrows are there, and he's got the big long mustache and like the goatee.
Oh, I love it. It's great. It's great. So Wally's still trying to run around and deal with these tricks and whatnot, and it's right around then when this new character shows up with a weird gun thing.
Just before she shows up as well, though, he's got such a monumental moment where he's like, wave of his hand and he'll kill everyone here unless I kill him first. I've got about 1/10 of a second to decide if I have it in me to actually take a life. That's such a huge moment for him to be considering.
Absolutely, yeah. I shouldn't have glossed over that. That is like, yeah. If I don't take him out, he's going to kill all these people. The fact that this entire crowd became, almost dead is kind of a big deal. Like it almost became like a mass murder, like in a moment.
This is that moment where he has to decide: do I let him do this and try and stop him, or do I take him out? Do you know what this is? This is a good version of what is supposed to be the final beat of Man of Steel.
Yeah, kind of. Oh dear. Yeah. So Wally, in trying to intervene, actually inadvertently saves Abracadabra, and like him and this woman who's shown up, who's clearly from the future. Like there's no question, I think, when she shows up that she's clearly from the future. Her technology, the weird clothes she's wearing, it's obvious.
Just the color of the gun that when she shows up, like it's all this light beams around it, and you're like, okay, this is futuristic as shit.
Yeah, we get this really interesting sort of premise that comes from her as well, is that she's here to get Abracadabra, and they actually sent him to this time period on purpose because he was so reckless that he didn't fit into the sort of like, Star Trek like society that they've got in the future. And it's like, well, people of his own kind can take care of him because this era was particularly reckless. Everyone was off their heads. All these superheroes running around, and
basically they were like, just go throw him in Arkham Asylum.
Kind of like, you can deal with it. You're better equipped because you're full of these nut jobs in your time period. And he's like, wait, if you came back to get him now, like, why not just go back to when he first appeared? And she basically explains that, well, the time travel's like not that accurate. Like they could only sort of estimate within about 10 years of where he landed, or when he landed, I should say. So that's why she's showing up now.
It's because it's such a big time jump that if they were only going back 100 years, they could be much more precise. But because they're going back thousands, it's like we can get pretty close, and it's only because we could follow exactly where he was that we can get as close as we did. Yeah.
So Flash just grabs her, runs off to try and help find him, see if they can track him down. They go through a bunch of places. She's kind of directed him. And they end up actually on the city between the two cities. The bridge between the two cities is what I was trying to say.
I was like, what was that?
Yeah, because Keystone, of course, and Central City are twin cities with a bridge. I think the Golden Gate Bridge, essentially, the Brooklyn Bridge, maybe connecting them. Maybe a better comparison. And he's on top, and he's basically going to essentially like murder the city. Like he's
kind of like gonna blow it up, kind of.
Yeah, he wants to destroy the entire city.
And she's like, "Oh, that's great. He'll exhaust all his power, and then it'll be really easy to capture."
Yeah, and Wally's like, No. I have to stop him. We can't just let people die. And she's like, yeah, but everyone here's history. It's fine. And all I could think was, yeah, but what if one of these people's your ancestor? Isn't that going to be like an issue? Just butterfly effect, all that.
It depends what the time travel rules are right now.
Yeah. So it was all sorts of things because he's up on top of the all the cable area, all the cables like up on top of the arc. What do you call that part?
I don't know the technical word. The
Yeah.
support teams.
Whatever you call it. Someone's going to tell us in the comments.
Probably. We're not bridge experts.
I know there's at least one bridge aficionado in our audience who's going to tell us.
Do we actually have a bridge fan?
I don't think so, but
there's got a bridge.
I mean, he likes bridge, but he prefers Go Fish.
That was bloody terrible.
That was a quality joke. You know, it was a quality joke.
It's just the arch.
It's just the arch. Oh, there you go. Okay, top of the arch. There you go. So, of course, Wally has to go in and try and save everything. But the big ending is that when he tries to grab Abracadabra, she fires her weird time gun thingamajig, and there's a flashlight. And you know what's going to happen here. Before you turn the page, like, oh my god, you know what the cliffhanger is going to be. You turn the page, and it's a 2-page spread where she's went to the future along with Abracadabra, but Wally's been taken for the ride. So we're in the future now, in this weird, colourful future. There's people like floating around in these weird triangles, and Wally's just like, oh crap.
Yeah, it's unique looking.
Yeah, do you know what? The design of her mask really makes me think of like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles villain or something like that from the cartoon. Like I'm getting like Bebop and Rocksteady.
The way it goes over her nose. Probably.
Although I'm not sure why she looks bald in the final panel.
That's a good question.
Did her hair get burned off in the time travel?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Which, by the way, they mentioned that just to explain why Abracadabra came back in the first place, is that he thought because part of the reason he wants to kill everyone in the building is because he wants to pull off the greatest trick ever by killing everyone in the building and bringing them back to life, because he thinks he can do that. And he thinks he can do that because he technically thought he died and came back to life, but what actually happened was he just got caught in like a time stream until his technology that was malfunctioning fixed itself, and that's why he came back when he did. It wasn't that he actually cheated death.
Shenanigans, basically.
Yeah, shenanigans. But I thought I'd mention that. That was his motivation. So it wasn't even just that he wanted to kill a room full of people. It was, or an arena full of people. It was, oh no, I want to do the greatest trick ever. And all I could think is like, yeah. And then when they don't come back, you'd be like, oh well, oops a daisy.
That sounds about right for him.
It does, doesn't it? I had fun with it. Sure. How did you feel?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I think it's an interesting start to the run proper, as I'm going to say, because you know the origin was okay. Let's just kind of get our feet wet, you know, get some backstory going, and the last issue was basically just a fill in before we can
actually
really
getting his feet wet.
Yep, exactly. I'll let you have that one. But this is it's the start of the run essentially, and it kind of feels that way. It's like, okay, here's the status quo. This is where we are. Here's a villain. We're going to play with a villain that you know first, and kind of play with some big hits. But we're going to put a twist on it, and do something new and unique at the end. And if this was the first issue of something, we talk all the time about first issues and having that extra hook at the end. And I think this really succeeds by having, okay, but now he's in the future, and it's in like a really far future. So it completely inverts the standard story trope that we have with Abracadabra showing up, and it's pretty interesting for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Give it a solid 8. Yep.